Welcome into the Energy Tech Podcast. For today, myself and Mike will be talking about the 2025 year in review for the Energy Tech Podcast, as well as the 2026 Industrial Technology Outlook. Mike, it's been a while. Glad to see you here in Canonsburg.
Hey, Jeff, it's good to be here. I am the co-host, Mike Flotis, with the Energy Tech Podcast. Jeff, we're back here in Canonsburg, in the heart of the OpSite Energy Control Room. It is good to be here. It is the end of 2025. We're moving into 26. We got a lot to talk about, man. And you know what? Let's start off the year, man. As you know, I have a real problem with Pennsylvania weather. I'm from...
he's a baby. He's a baby.
I'm from the state of Texas.
Last week, it was cold. This week is moderate.
I'm sure it was, but you know what? Texas, of course, is home. It doesn't mean we don't support the community wherever you are. And by saying that, don't forget to like and subscribe to us on this show. We're really going to focus on what we've done for 2025. And then some outlook in terms of in the industrial space, industrial automation, particularly when we're talking about oil and gas, energy, renewables, data center.
Data.
We'll talk about that. This is a big year for data, man, going into that. So, I think that the theme for this really is not just a year in review and an outlook for 26. A lot's happened, but people have gone pretty much from chatting with data to acting on it. And I think that's what we're going to see in 26.
Well, we'll get into that. But before we do that, let's take a look in the rear view coming up. But, I think it was a great year. A lot of crazy stuff was happening this year in this space.
It was.
But, yeah, let's take a look at what are the highlights that you were able to pull out from last year.
Let's kind of look back here, just pretty much in review. Like I said, the theme here is just a little bit, chatting with data. People started, as you saw lots of large language models that were pushed into the space. People are using different large language models. People wanting to identify opportunities for AI, which I think is a big deal. So let's come back to the slides here. I'll kind of cover that year in review. When I think of the year in review, Jeff, I really think of them as high-level categories. I think, and there's an impact to our space, and here's what I mean. The first one, as we know, is there's a grid congestion. We know that there's tons of issues coming up with the grid, whether you're in renewables, when we look about data centers that were stalled in terms of transmission.
Permitting, too, will continue to be a problem, I think,
I think you're right. Yeah,
there's a lot of big dollar signs that Trump talks about, and a lot of other folks. Hey, look at all this is coming in, but when you put pencil to paper, I'm not sure it's going to all work out as far as the energy delivery, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. One of the things we saw, especially if you're in Pennsylvania, we'll see this. When you talk about data center, as we know, Virginia, Texas lead the way in terms of data center. But I'll tell you what, Pennsylvania looks like another what I call dark horse in the industry in terms of the fact that they're pitching in about $90 billion. We saw that in 2025 when Trump's in office. There was quite a push there. The governor of Pennsylvania, they had was it at UPenn? I think they had a symposium event for data center. So you're seeing the convergence of power and energy devoted to data center in the hopes that they're building this highway environment for data. So data center power, still power hungry, lots of workloads. So AI is really pushing kind of that power capability. So we're seeing lots of automation scope that's being included in the orchestration of power. And it's not just industrial automation. I think lots of industries are being impacted, vertical markets, whether that's manufacturing, water, wastewater. I think everyone's going to see the advantage of AI, and we're just seeing lots of power. In relation to that, Jeff, I think you're also seeing lots of what we call off-grid projects, and we're going to talk about some of our predictions in 26 that I think are quite interesting.
I think I would see quite a bit of that because when we get back to permitting, I think things are kind of like somewhat kosher in most of these places that deal with data centers for the long term. Obviously, we sit on a very large resource right here in the Marcellus and Utica shales.
Right.
Problem is if the microgrids and all these things are not self-serving right at, close to the wellheads and pipelines.
Right.
Now you're touching the normal grid and or the connected grid, and what does that do for the average consumer? And I think what you might see is as price pressures begin to rise against average consumers, you're going to see a lot more kickback, right? So,
Yeah.
And that may not be next year, maybe 2020. Who knows? With some of these project scopes being years and months combined. So, I think it's something to keep an eye on for sure. Is especially in liberal leaning states where there's a voice of, hey, I'm paying 15 cents a kilowatt hour versus 12. Why is that? Well, there's a big data center down the street. But
right. And I think that propels the off-grid market, which is the off-grid resources for natural gas. It's right here in Pennsylvania. You can talk about it again. Homer, Pennsylvania, seeing projects that are being pushed with it was an EQT, I think. Has got some agreements. There's some things that are happening here in Pennsylvania for that. But it's
definitely exciting here. I mean, it is a lot. I know we were at Marcellus Shell, or I was a couple of weeks ago, and you were in remote
right
power center and data and natural gas to deliver fuel. It was a big. It was the most attended
group
session in of the conference. So
you had lots of folks that wanted to understand what the policy is, what's going to happen, what's that going to look like for the state of Pennsylvania or the shale. I think this is going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
In conjunction with that, I think what we're seeing also is trends in terms of analytics. I always like to refer to him. Walker Reynolds talks about digital transformation, where data becomes the single commodity in your business, and I think people are latching onto that. They're latching onto that idea. So we're going away from where the normal spend, which is I'm going to use my data, is the use of data is actually being outpaced by the storage of data, right? We need places to put it. People are creating edge centers. They're creating environments where they do need to create, now you've got connexes that are edge data centers. They're out in the middle of nowhere. So people are getting smart and deploying them in West Texas and other places to give people an edge in terms of analytics. So you're seeing a position where I think integrators, people like us that are in the technology space, we're going to need to deliver orchestration and semantics now, aside from just the data. Now we need to make sense of it and create some sort of semantic layer. And a lot of that has to do with creating orchestration and DataOps layers. You see that already with Ignition. We were at the ICC this past year, and you saw the DataOps layer that was put right inside of 8.3 in Ignition, because there's the recognition that data has to be transformed in order to make sense. It's not just plug and play anymore, or as we say in the oil industry, plug and pray. I think right now it's how do we orchestrate data? How do we transform it to have semantic layers and make sense for the business? I think the final trend I'm seeing, or I saw in 2025 as a whole, is cybersecurity. It's still a big deal, but now more than ever, I think it's coming to the forefront of what we're doing, especially with artificial intelligence being part of this.
Was CrowdStrike? Was that?
Yeah, that was 2025.
There were some big ones, right?
Yeah, CrowdStrike
Microsoft had one. There was some big
AWS went down,
affect the whole globe type.
Absolutely,
right? So, and those are kind of new, right? I mean, it's a relatively new thing. So.
CrowdStrike was a big deal for the year. You had at the same time you had things go on with AWS in the East, and that wasn't related to cybersecurity. I think that was related to the fact that you're deploying things at scale now, much bigger. And so cybersecurity seems to be an interest. It's no longer just something that is, well, we're going to put it as a project. It now becomes part of the program.
Becomes part of the organization in a much more profound way. We talked to quite a few technology folks, CTOs, CIOs, things like that, and what we're hearing is that your non-technological folks that sit on the C-suite are also getting degrees in cybersecurity. Maybe a little master's degree, or it's just part of running a large organization. Is you have to be well versed in these things. At least several people on your board, or not even your board, but your executive team. So
and what you're seeing, if we look at the slide, it's got. What I'm talking about here is basically we're going from the bridge of execution right now as we transition out of 25 into 26 into what we're going to call structural reality. That means that right now You have people that are doing an execution phase. They've been looking at data. There's lots of AI hype that came out at 25 and going into 26. Everyone's now looking at the structural reality. Like, holy cow, I've got all these things. It's not just chatbots asking questions anymore. Now success is strictly grounded in the physical constraints of energy and computing power. Those are the two big convergences.
It's thermodynamics at its core.
Yeah.
And just like climate change and everything else, some things just don't make sense because of thermodynamics, right?
Yeah. So. And Jeff, I think if you go back to the slides, you've got data management spend that's progressed. In 2030, they're looking at it being, $513 billion. These are data management spends that are coming from the IEA as well, where you talk about latency, right? So AI is almost, no one's talking about how fast decisions are made. So it's not just so much harnessing data, but it's like, what is it? I guess my point here is this. In 2025, we learned that having a smart model is useless if it takes 3 weeks to trust the data, right? That's my point. Like, great, you got all these great tools, but I can't trust it. Number one, is it hallucinating? Number two, do I have a real data model? Do I have real data governance? We've learned that just working with our own clients. We saw this in 2025. You had midstream players that said, we want to start leveraging AI. It's in their conversations. But what happens is that they have them in their conversations, and then they get with consultants that say, well, we could take your data, we can run it through through AI, and in about 6 weeks, we can give you something. Well, guess what? It's been 6 weeks. I'm interested in calling them and seeing if anything's been released. Yeah. And I can almost bet that they're in the purgatory trap that's typical of AI projects right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had we had several consultations around, 7-figure type POs around AI and what can it do for, these organizations. And even to where we heard from, an executive team, hey, the executive team came down and said, we want to increase our EBITDA with AI, right? I said, well, that's pretty great. And he said, well, that's more than that. But,
right.
They had areas where they wanted to focus. And, of course, they had, picking some low-hanging fruit. But it's something top of mind where people are willing to say, hey, especially larger enterprises where, things like saving fuel gas on a compressor fleet of 200,000 horsepower.
That's right.
That can add up pretty dang quick. And if you can figure out ways to keep those compressors running, to do preventative maintenance. And, of course, we've all been trying to do preventative type actions in concert with data for a decade, right? Like
yes.
It's been top of mind for many vendors and places that we've worked. But now it's kind of like, hey, we're really close to a reality where this actually makes sense, right? But
yes.
And it all goes back to the data, right?
It is. And so when I look at retrospect, let me show you this slide right here real quick. So let's put these in these pillars, okay? If we go back and we look now, and you look in our space, and again, I want to attribute some of this to some of the folks I follow and talk with. I want to point them out. A couple of them is, when you listen to folks like, Walker Reynolds, you listen to Jeff Winter, you listen to some voices. There's a really great book you want to grab. It's not energy related, but is Manufacturing AI. That's a really great book. I picked that one up. I think you're seeing governance, risk and compliance, or GRC, for AWS. My point is that what you're seeing right now are these three main things. Number one is the unified namespace. We see this over and over in our side of the business right now, where the UNS has stopped being this buzzword and it's becoming a requirement. There's the Prove It conference that's in 2026 in February of this year. That happened last year. It was the first time. It was a foundational conference. We saw this at ICC. We'll make an announcement. We'll talk a little bit about Intellect, but even there's lots of UNS happening. So O&G players are finally saying, we've got problems we want to fix. I think the second one is the DataOps layer, and we're seeing this now, like I mentioned earlier, when we stop trying to bolt on AI and we start shifting to kind of building the right data sets, starting foundationally at the UDT, and then creating a way for us to make sense of data, whether you're doing it in real time or you're doing it at rest in the cloud. And the final thing is augmentation. So 2025, well, here's what I mean by this. 2025 was just a warm-up act. It means that we used AI to help our operators see patterns, to augment us. That's what we're doing. Now, I think going into 26, we're going to start seeing agents being used to build necessary trust. So that means that this year, Jeff, it's all about let's try it. Let's test it out maybe. Let's see what we can do. Lots of people that were doing AI projects, they put them in a place of purgatory. When you go look at the book that we have here, Siegel wrote, Eric Siegel wrote his book, the AI playbook. He really does talk about projects that go into purgatory because they just don't, the data set's unclean. If you look at step 4 of his BizML model, he really talks about where the data sucks. And we saw that firsthand. We see that with our clients right now.
Well, yeah, the clients are ignorant, right?
Yes.
So, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. Everyone's ignorant somewhere, right? But
right.
You don't know what you don't know. And
right.
if the executive team comes and says, hey, here's a couple $1 million to go figure out what we can do there, they may sign up for something that really can't help them because they don't know what they don't know about how data gets cleaned. So I think a lot of people are learning this lesson the hard way this year, including us to some degree. So, it's prepping. And I think the decision comes to oil and gas operators, manufacturers, whoever it is, like, okay, maybe we did try this. We hit a wall. You were on the podcast a while back with Austin Blake, and they hit that wall, right?
They did.
I think a lot of people are hitting that wall, and it's decision time.
Yes.
And maybe they hit the wall in 2025, and budget season comes up in August, and they're saying, hey, we know we can't do this. We got to figure out a way to put some resources towards cleaning up this data set.
Yes.
There's also some really cool technology that's coming out around being able to do these things on the fly from the edge and, that are appearing in 2025. Not that we've been able to put our hands on, but they're definitely out there and they're emerging. So
yeah. And so, Jeff, in retrospect, let's talk about what we've done in 2025. I mean, not so much, looking ahead. I'm talking about what we did just this year.
Energy and just talking about, let's talk about energy tech first, guys. 50 episodes last year, 2025. I think we launched this show in February, March timeframe.
Yeah.
And I can remember the first shows. Mike was still talking about the weather. Obviously, it was winter, but the booth looks a little different. This room in general, if y'all could see it, it's completely different. Up on the sidewall, we have a bunch of guests because we did put together 50 shows, so 45 guests among those.
Yes.
We also did this show, which if you're a general follower, you know this already, but we did this show from ICC in Sacramento, which has been, a wealth of really, really great episodes. Mike, you were able to book some really, really cool guests.
Yeah.
Of course, we had people like, that came on the show that were like Adrian Kane from Atmos. Arlen Nipper, kind of like
Zach Scriven.
Yeah, Zach. These guys, we had some really cool guests. Even down the hallway, we had
Jeff Haincher,
whose book's behind me.
Yeah.
This started out as kind of like, hey, let's have some fun. We built a little booth. Yeah. I like to build stuff. Mike's over here watching me like, what is all this? But I think it came together decent. So first and foremost, 1 year under the Energy Tech podcast, almost.
We did. And you know what, Jeff? We stayed true to what we're trying to bring to the community. I think that's what we did. We didn't do 5 episodes and say, oh, this isn't working, right? We stayed on the path. We're going to continue to stay on the path for the community. Who is that community? That community is anybody that is trying to bridge their technology with their energy. That could be, we've said it over and over, an instrumentation and electrical foreman, an automation superintendent, a director that's inside of compliance, regulatory, somebody that has a budget that says, I want to make sense of how I turn data into a commodity for my business and give me a competitive advantage in the space of oil and gas, energy, data center, and renewable. We've stayed true to that, and I think our guests came on. That was everybody from Snowflake. We had integrators that came on the show. We had ADC reps come on the show. Red Lion, HMS. I mean, we had other.
Let me put you right on the spot because he is looking at the wall. We have everyone that's been on the show. Who were your favorite guests and why?
Oof, man, that's a tough one. I don't want to get in trouble because
we didn't rehearse this one. Yeah,
okay.
This is a tough one, but all right. Maybe you want to come back to me. But
no, I'll do it right now. Let me tell you. I'm gonna give you 5. Okay, it's not 3. I got to do 5 because maybe it spreads it out. Number 1, I think the first one goes out to Amy Williams. Thanks for being on the show. Let me tell you why. Amy Williams gets it. She's in a different space, so I can say her name. So she's in life science, but you get it. You get what we're talking about. It falls in line with everything we're talking about. I think that was great as a guest. Thank you.
Great energy, too.
Great energy.
Real fun.
That was good to have her on the show. Number 2, I think Jeff Haincher. Jeff Haincher brought some leadership to us that I think is always needed in any market that you're in, man. Yeah. I think you really want to talk.
He's a podcast stud.
He is.
He like literally, it was like, hey, Jeff, he's running a couple minutes late. We come in here. He sits right down. 55 minutes later, he stands up and walks out, and we've shot an hour-long show. Like, one take, not that we do many takes. We really don't. Just obviously, but
number 3 for me. So I think Jeff Haincher was great in terms of leadership. You got to have that in anything that you're doing, man. He's really great. Number 3 is all devoted to him, man, is Arlen Nipper. Thank you, Arlen. You've done so much for us here on the show. I think you've been advocating for us, and we value what you do out there, what you do for the industry. You've really helped us out. And not only that, I think you articulate really well, not just MQTT because you're the co-inventor, but because it's prolific in the industry. And you have a set of missionaries and disciples, I call us, that go out there and really push what we're talking about in terms of leveraging MQTT. So I think that was great to have him as a guest. I think number 4 would be the guys from Waterbridge, okay? And let me tell you why. Waterbridge has a
Joey and
so that's Joey and
Ryan Glover.
Ryan Glover, guys over at Waterbridge. Let me tell you why. Number 1, they're an operator. They are leveraging the unified namespace. They're leveraging the DataOps layer. They're wanting to make a difference in the field. Those guys are not just interested in buying and selling. What they're interested in is making a difference in our space, and they're doing that at the operator level. Yep. That's why it's a really big deal. And then I think number 5 to me is a toss up with a few folks, but I think if I had to give it to someone, I think it's going to be to Navneet Bell, who's the chief operating officer at CNX. Why do I say that? Because he's in the role that we understand is looking how to bridge those technologies in that role. And he understands what needs to happen. And he is, consistently with their team looking for ways to deliver that technology. And I think he represents, the groups that we're trying to touch and reach, not just as a CLO.
Technology junkie.
But
he's also not just on like the OT side, like where he drives technology and innovation and, is in completions technology, drilling technology, a lot of these upstream things that obviously are very, very data intensive. And very, now that we got data that's sub-second and live in your face, like he just eats it up. So
he does. And like you said, Jeff, he's a renowned, engineer in terms of that space, in terms of shale, period. Navis set some records. So he articulates that part of the business that we focus on, but he does that also with bridging technology. So I would have to give it, again, there's some toss up with some other folks. It was good to have them all. If I didn't mention you, it's not that I don't want you on the show, but Jeff put me in a tough spot. Blame him.
I did, and it was, I wouldn't say it was intentional, but...
Okay, add 2 more. Who are yours?
I think Nav was always a good one. Let's see. Jerry Reeves was a big one. I'd say that episode with him and DJ Melanson, really good. And DJ's been a great friend for several years, so he come and see us a couple times here in person, and then I don't know, man. Arlen obviously is one of my favorites, and not just because of that. He did a lot of episodes. He also we did a workshop that's on, you can find that on YouTube as well, but We also lost an episode with Arlen, and I'll take the blame. It was, well, our equipment should take the blame, but we lost one that was a good one at ICC, so I do feel bad about that. But yeah, those are some really good ones. Really, all of them out of ICC were great, short, great episodes. But enough about Energy Tech Podcast, guys. We're going to be doing the same thing in 2026, so we'll go ahead and give you that forward view. Real quickly, we want to give a little bit of love to our sponsor, who's been here all year as well, is OpSite Energy.
Yeah.
For those that don't watch the show, it's, I don't know, that's not really a joke, but we're also employees of OpSite Energy.
Yep.
But when we founded OpSite, we decided, hey, this is how we want to let people know that we know what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
And I don't want to go spend a bunch of money on marketing, especially when we're kind of in year one. But we wanted something that we could, I really like the idea of documenting our careers and our purpose. And we have a lot of videos that are private as well, because we got some things going on behind the scene that you guys are not privy to yet, but probably this year. But as a whole, OpSite stood up a modern control room and built for the future as well. We've got about 21 folks working at OpSite now, and we had 0 this time last year. So we put a ton of work and effort into a really beautiful, high-functioning, next-level, futuristic production SCADA build.
Yes.
Which you covered at ICC in front of a very large group.
Yeah.
More to come on that this year. We'd like to show you some more pieces of that, and we're still making that thing sing. But we'll bring more to you on that. That was a big one. You did a great job setting up a marketing pipeline. And guys, if this is the only way you see us, there's many other ways to see us. So go look at our website, give us an email, send a comment. We can get you involved in other things like the ebooks and things that we put out in 2025 that had a really good response, from your pipeline that you set up.
Yeah, if people are on the people I know, if they watch the episode, I do have groups. We do send out some email marketing campaigns, but they are so targeted. And we enjoy them because people read them. They're opening them. I think we're beating what the typical expectation is in an email campaign, because we don't spam you to death. We want to give you real content, just like we do on the show, things that you can take away. So I think that's why we've been pretty successful with some of the email campaigns and things that we've launched, using some digital strategies. I leverage a tool called Go High Level. Because it's great for us. We're not a huge organization. We're not an enterprise level company in terms of 1,000 employees. Really, it really allows us to target markets and really focus on our folks we want to reach.
Yeah.
So,
2025, we also got some things happening behind the scenes we're not quite ready to share, but they are around developing new technologies, softwares, things of that nature. For industry, for oil and gas, for control rooms, et cetera. And then, of course, we had, a half dozen, maybe more really good consulting opportunities, some with new clients, some with old friends.
Yes.
3 or 4 states that we, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California.
And Texas.
Texas is on deck. So it's been fun, man. It's been a roller coaster. We talk about how do we get all this done, and we're planning, prepping all the time. We spend a lot of time up in Pennsylvania, away from home. And I remember telling Mike yesterday that being an entrepreneur is a lifestyle, not a quick win. But we were able to get some decent wins. We got a great horizon on the future. But enough about OpSite. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Obviously, we're not here without OpSite, so appreciate that. And that's the only plug we gave all year, so or all year for last year. But
I do want to give one final plug, and that is that's to my wife, America, for letting me be who I am. I think thank you, and that I appreciate it. You've done so much to let me do this. We're part of this. Not just let me. I don't mean that in that way. I just mean that my wife stands behind me in what we're doing. And I know Jeff has his family as well, and we're just passionate about what we're doing. The other thing is that when you hear us talk about our engagements for 2025, Jeff, we pour ourselves into those. So when we do digital transformation consulting and projects and implementations and integrations, we don't do that with the idea that we want to stay long and go deep and hit pockets of dollars. We actually are, like I said, I think I'm a missionary for the UNS. I'm an advocate and a disciple for technologies that we can leverage to make things better. That's it.
All right. Hey, I want to give my wife a plug too while we're at it. I'm just kidding. So let's set the stage for 2026, Mike.
Yeah.
Get your crystal ball out.
All right.
What are you seeing coming down the hike? How do you want to upload this for us here?
All right. Let me start here for a quick second. So there's a philosophy. And if you look here, we're going from augmentation to automation. And now, will we see this in 2026? I'm not going to dish out a bunch of reports from BCG or Bain or anybody. Those guys get it wrong a lot, and I criticize them a lot. Sorry, but
they have M dashes in their reports.
They do, and have M dashes in their reports. Those guys they delivered reports that were wrong. They, talked about, AI projects, at least 30%, we're not going to go their way. Well, guess what? It's more than double that. It's 80+% of projects that failed in terms of AI. So when we have this philosophy of augmentation to automation, it means we have to have the appropriate automation spectrum, right? So the hardest part of 26 is not about building intelligence. It's going to be deciding when to step back and let it run, right? I've had great guests here. Even, I want to attribute this to Arlen Nipper. He's, we've been very cautious about AI and saying, well, we're going to have agentic AI, Really, there's some things in terms of automation that are low risk, right? Let AI handle the valve adjustment. If we're talking about control rooms, let it handle valve adjustment and load balancing. That doesn't mean get the human out of the loop. It means, and I want to say this as part of, OpSite and what we do is in terms of the control room and energy tech, we're not interested in trying to put AI to replace operators. Okay? We said that last year. We're saying that this year. What we're interested in is augmenting and deciding when to step back and let something run and try it in an environment that works, that's safe, that's intrinsically safe. We believe that. Like there's great augmentation with AI. I think so. There's high risk stuff, where you have novel context, where you have high stakes decisions. You want to keep the human in the loop for right now. So that's my first start in terms of that. I'm setting the preface for what I'm about to say for predictions in 26. I am not saying that AI is going to replace everything. I'm not saying AI is bad, and I'm not saying that AI is the super future. I'm saying there's lots of roads that go down, and you really have to be careful, and you have to have the appropriate automation. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I want to revisit one thing you said right before we move into your crystal ball prediction. You said, we're not trying at OpSite to replace human beings with AI. And I take that a little step further. We're not trying to apply AI, or our mindset and my philosophy at least is, hey, I'm not trying to apply this to save money on labor and, things like that, even though that's always a goal for a lot of companies.
Sure.
It's really, can we do things better than the human can?
Yeah.
And I think we know that AI has the potential to do that if it's set up right, if your models are set up right, if the data is right. And we want to, our philosophy and goals are, we want to make a control room, next level, right? Like there's a lot of control rooms out there that are old school, and a lot of it, maybe partly the blame is PHMSA because rules are old school. In 2026, we're really going to be pushing the boundary. And by the end of the year, I think we'll be headed up to PHMSA to push the law.
Yeah, you're right. And we'll talk about that here too.
And because we are going to make control rooms one of the safest places to operate. And, there's been some bad accidents over the last couple decades related to control rooms. Of course, that's what prompts a bunch of regulation, but regulation is old and stale, and new technologies are not. So applying new technologies allows us to be safer, more efficient, maybe save some money on head count and labor. We'll see. But that's not our main goal. So I wanted to reiterate that before you get into 2026.
Yeah, no, I think we're both prefacing and we have the same message, about this. It's going to do something better. You and I were recently with a manufacturing customer, and, one of the things they had is operators that stood at each one of the OEM cells that were there. And the reality is if they just applied automation and controls at the base level, even without AI, then that's going to do a better job because we can pull back that data in real time. And it's something that works better than someone standing there even visualizing it at a
especially prevailing wage union labor. So
yeah. So
let's put them doing something.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at trend 1 here real fast. Okay. I want to go through this one. Now, when I say from chatbot to agents, everyone's chatting, everyone's pulling in a large language model. That's a part of, large language models. And I think you still will see a little bit of agents. And I'm not going full agentic AI here. Okay, so I said that earlier. What I'm saying is that we're moving from a chatbot, let's say, to a multi-agent. Where do we apply this? We don't have to apply it where it autonomously runs a pipeline. That's not where I'm going. I'm saying that it can autonomously issue a work order. For sure. Okay? So that's what I mean. An agent should be able to run a work order. An agent should be able to see, hey, this chemical's run out. Let's issue an order for chemical. As you and I both know, Jeff, I mean, we're in a winter season right now. You've got tons of chemical, glycol, and things that are being used up.
Or, hey, let's get ahead of the market in September and look at the price of, like methanol as a commodity, right? Like,
Absolutely.
Why not go ahead and fill these tanks, right? If we don't have any shrink,
yes,
those sort of things that obviously people try to do. But I mean, if it's your day job and you're a pipeline foreman or superintendent or whatever, you're not probably tracking the price of methanol in September.
Yeah.
Now, when December shows up and you get this big old bill, it's probably part of your budget planning for the season. But things like that, how can AI help us think when we're sleeping? And look for things that we just physically or we just don't have the time or bandwidth to do.
They're acting on something in a defined guardrail. That's the shift in 2026. Again, I'm not talking about autonomously running a cryo plant. I'm talking about autonomously delivering work orders. I'm talking about autonomously looking at chemical. We're talking about looking at market forces either upstream for production or downstream for my nomination. You can do that. That's an industrial agent. And because it's not living in the ERP, right? The business for delivering nominations downstream on your gas isn't happening at the ERP level.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also third parties too. So using agents to bring in third-party data, whether it's from an email, we're scraping a spreadsheet that we got from third-party pipeline guy or whatever it may be. That data is valuable, especially when paired with quality data on this side. So that's another place I could see that happening.
So you look at trend 1 right now. Again, I mentioned it here. It's the pilot year, right? Industrial agents. They don't flag an anomaly. They act in with guardrails, right? They close the loop without human intervention for routine tasks. That's what it's all about. It's routine. A step away from augmentation. That I think is going to be the trend in 26. Okay, so that's going to be a big one. Let's look at trend number 2 real fast. This is going to be a big one. The nuclear data center. I think it's coming. I think in 26, we're going to actually see some data, an SMR. We're actually going to see those hyperscalers actually deploy, a modular reactor of some kind. It's going to happen in 26. That's my prediction. I don't know. Maybe we should put money on it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we put
Let's put some lines in the comments, guys. We got 3 to 1 on an SMR solution powering a data center. I do think we will see an SMR deployed here in 2026.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's for a data center or not, right off the bat, I don't know. From my understanding, and I've done some research on SMRs a couple years back for a client. There are approved designs for the United States. There are designs that are going in Europe, and in other areas. We're getting close. You know what I mean? And this is not just exciting in my mind, for data. It's for humanity in general. I think it's probably the future of how we power our lives. So,
yeah. So I think that's going to be something for us to consider right now. Is just SMR, right? So that's trend 2. Let's talk about trend 3. So trend 3 for me, I think air cooling is dead for AI, and I'm talking data center. I'm not saying it's not out there and somewhat prolific when you go to the older data centers. I've been to some this year, and but for air cooling, for AI clusters, with different rack densities, Jeff, I think, liquid cooling becomes kind of mandatory, but there's other avenues. And I think right now, the industry KPI, right now, people look at PUE, right? The effectiveness of power. But right now, I think we're shifting to what's called PCE. And this is where we're looking at what is our extract per megawatt. Like, what's our total output in terms of data, right? It's no longer about PUE, right? Now it's power compute. How much can we power compute?
And just to give some context there, back to 3, I think it's, when you say 100 kW for a rack, you're talking about a rack that's, 6 foot tall.
Sure.
That's 16 inches wide, 20 inches wide. That's crazy.
It is.
Right? Like, prior to that kind of cluster rack, of course, not all of them are like that, but about 10 kW at the most is what you'd see, stacked up potentially. But the densities have just gotten so out of control.
Well, not just that, Jeff. I think we're seeing this right now. Daniel, let's switch screens here. I want to show you something, and this is proving exactly what I'm thinking. Just today at the CES conference in Vegas, Jensen Huang announced that right now NVIDIA is moving to its highlight of using what they call warm water platforms in their data center that can hover around 45 degrees Celsius, eliminating the need for water chilling systems in some level, right? So this is what he announces. You can kind of break this out yourself. I'm not going to go too much into detail. Just understand that right now, this is what's happening. They've got the older version Blackwells. They're saying, hey, look, we can extract more compute power without having to leverage more liquid cooling, right? So that really tells us what the implications are for the data center, right? For warm water, liquid cooling, because this new Rubin can run at a higher cooling temperature, so there's the potential for long-term pressure on pure play chiller vendors. In fact,
if you were shorting those guys, I don't know that anyone was.
Well,
but
these players, if you go look right now, Johnson Controls and one of the others, I think it was Modine, dropped stock from 11 and 22% just from this announcement.
Wow.
So that's all I'm saying is that I think we're going to see that maybe sooner, but this is the shift going into 26, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, edge computing. So when we think of edge computing, right now you're paying for some token pricing. Again, not to get purely technical, just understand that, chief financial officers, they're going to look at their AI budgets. I think they're already doing that. People are looking at their AI budgets due to high cost. And so there's a shift from these language models. They're basically looking at industrial edge capability. What can we do at the edge without creating an expense for delivering data to the cloud?
Yeah, right? And one of your first slides was like, what, $513 billion in data that's just flowing into Amazon and Azure and whoever the hell else.
The hyperscalers, right? So tons of data there. But if we can take these smaller models and deploy them at the edge, there's lots of computing. And when you're in the oil and gas space, this is critical. It's critical because we know that when we're not tightly coupled to AWS or Azure in the cloud or GCP, what that means is that when the plant loses its connection, it can still continue to run and still continue to compute there at the plant level. Mm. And I think that's going to be a big deal. So edge computing is becoming a big deal. And it's not just our industry, but I want to relate it to energy and oil and gas. That's a big deal there.
Yep.
All right. My last one trend, I think, right now is what I'm going to call the decision engineer. Now, you're seeing this happen right now with jobs in IT and the tech space. So you used to have different roles, and they're starting to merge. You see data engineers that are now absorbing responsibility to be not just a data engineer, but data scientist, a data analyst. They're starting to cross over into that responsibility. So you're creating these roles of AI engineers and I call them decision engineering. I don't believe it's they coined them as AI. They coined them as now you're an advanced data engineer. But you do have the decision engineer where the goal is it's placing someone that can help make decisions outside of the operational system of record, right? So you're going to see this role emerge in oil and gas, not just renewables, but they're really mapping the chain of trust, right? So that means that these engineers are looking at where's my data coming from at the edge? How are we delivering that across our cloud platform? And is that even necessary? Can we leverage the edge? So there's a complete path for data, and it includes governance. I mean, Jeff, you and I are seeing this with our clients right now. They're wanting to be able to look at their data at the edge, govern it, create, the proper UDTs, and then finally transform their data to be used. And that requires lots of decision engineering, so they're creating those kinds of roles. So that's my prediction in terms of trending for, number 5, I think. And I'm keeping it high level because I'm not here to do some sort of crystal ballish BS.
We'll get the money out after the show, guys. I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah. So I one more slide. I think you can see we've already talked about the global electricity demand that partners with everything we're talking about. You'll see that increase in terms of electricity demand that's happening for data centers. This is the IEA, of course, putting out these reports. Reaching over 1,000 terawatts, an hour of power for global data center usage. If you look at the stack, what they're estimating in terms of going into 2026, in a base case scenario, you've got cryptocurrency, you've got your traditional data centers, and then you've got all of your, dedicated AI data center. Look at the occupation of that. I mean, that's almost double. So that's high. That's really what I'm looking at is the context here is the power constraint that exists and how big of a deal AI is going to replace. Now, I do want to caution everybody when I make these predictions, everything has a bubble. I don't care what it is. Go back and look. Dark fiber. Fiber had a bubble. The internet had a bubble. The housing market had a bubble. I think at some point this is going to have a bubble. Is it the year of 26? I don't know. I just know
podcast bubble.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there's a podcast bubble and people get tired of it. And
For sure, there's a podcast bubble.
Yeah. So, I think one more slide here in engineering trust. Finally, I'm just going to say it. 2026 is the year we stop playing with tech and start engineering trust. That's what people want. They want their data to make sense. They want it to be real and no bullshit. I think people want, if you can't trace data lineage of your decision, you aren't doing AI, you're just guessing with more electricity.
All right.
Okay?
All right.
So there you go. That's my 2026 going into it, Jeff. And, let's kind of shift here, man, because I said a lot, but I really want to target what we're going to do, what OpSite's doing in 26.
All right. So really quickly, let's talk about the game plan for OpSite. Well, obviously, we're not going to give you the game plan, but one of the things that we're doing a little different in 26 is we are developing a data center space. It's literally right underneath my feet.
Yes.
Pretty cool place. So we're working on commercial contracts and agreements for that right now, and that's exciting.
It is.
And now it's not going to be a hyperscale data center, but we've got a couple megawatts of energy to play with. So
We do.
And then we can always get more. It just costs money. So
yeah. It's I think, Jeff, again, one thing about us is that we're doing what we say we do, and moving into the data center space and setting up this colo environment is going to let us do two things. Number one, it's going to let us put into practice some of the items that we want to target in terms of products and testing them and deploying them. And number two, it's really helping clients with their data center space as well.
Yeah, and really, OpSite is uniquely positioned amongst our competitors, if there is any, because we have sandboxes to play in.
Yeah,
right. We've got 1,000 wells that we can go mess around with our partnerships. We got a dozen or more midstream locations, large compressor, a couple BCS of gas that we can go play with. We've got data tied to all that. We're going to have a data center right there. We've got technology integration. We have what I can say competitive advantage, but it's really it's a fun advantage for me and you because it's not everything we do can be based in reality and be tested and adjusted before we take it to clients. And it kind of helps us out, We can fail fast. Again, you said, with folks like Nav needing them that are they understand that that's what technology is, and we're not going to get it right the first time, but we do it 100 times, we'll have it perfect. So data center, that's number one. We're also looking at, and I guess we can now say this out loud, but I won't drop any names yet, but we'll have some shows coming up here pretty soon that you'll see here in the next, 4 to 6 weeks around some really, really cool edge products, just like Mike mentioned, being the trend. Seems like all the trends you're into are the stuff we're doing. But anyway, we're also going to drop what we feel is a really, really cool tool to be used in control rooms and plants and operations. Not quite want to share too much about that because we still need to hold on to some competitive advantage there as well. But just know that these tools are also in our laboratory, which we consider our control room right next door, as well as the laboratory out in the field.
Yeah. So to be clear, we have some products that are leverage the control room space and products that will leverage at the edge.
Yeah.
That's what we can say. And I think that's going to be great 26 going into that, Jeff. And again, we're doing what we say we do.
And we're set up, and hopefully we'll be doing some research for the feds in this space. So we'll let you know there. There'll definitely be an announcement on LinkedIn or something if we get that. But, I think we've got a viable chance there for sure. Control room growth. So we are still a third-party control room for hire. And those that we're trying to attract, I'm not going to consider y'all the lab, but anytime we're collecting data, it's an opportunity for us to improve, not just for our best clients and biggest clients, but for anyone in the future that is a client. They're stepping into an environment where we've been putting this stuff at the forefront for years. So we want to continue to grow our third-party offering. So you guys that are competitors, watch out, watch your back. Call your clients, show yourself up, send them a gift, because we're doing the same thing. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, we are. We're reaching out to people, Jeff. I mean, again, what separates us is we want to walk the walk in terms of leveraging AI and being in the spaces that we talk about to learn. We don't put things at risk by having lab environments. But one thing we like to do is take data and use that to create a way for us to learn and fail fast and then iterate. That's really what we're doing here. It's like any other business. You know what? If you go to the fanciest restaurants, I promise you that there's a chef in the back that is making a dish in the kitchen using the products that are back there. I'm not saying using their data. No one's compromising data. I'm talking more about if there's tomatoes, if there's things that we can use, we're going to use them to try a dish the same way a chef would do it, the same way an artist would do it, the same way anybody in the technical space would do it. I think that's what we're doing, man. So.
And let's see, what else? Podcast-wise, we are invited to come to Intellic.
We'll be at Intellic
early
in April. Yeah, we'll announce with that group, but just know we're going to be there.
Yeah, so if you're going to be there, we'll do another show to announce that. But contact Mike, or he'll be contacting you more than likely to be on the show. So that'll be fun. We're going to continue to do a lot of digital transformation consulting, and the reason I say that, I know that to be true, just because we're already, and it's 2026. So some really cool clients. It's a lot to understand, and Mike is a really good gift for going in there and understanding a process. Even we're dealing with clients that are not in the oil and gas space. That's
right.
We're growing bacteria to make pesticides. Like, what the heck? But it's still an industrial process.
It is.
It looks like a freaking midstream plant, right? So it's large tanks and pipelines, basically, and power and energy and automation. So we want to continue that. Really, that's we've covered 4 or 5 verticals that we're going to be playing in, and there may be a few more.
Let me point, Jeff,
but
I do want to point that when we talk about our initiatives for digital transformation, it's not a buzzword. We're not here to sell you a product. Okay? Like, for me, when we talk about transformation, we believe that if we go to a client, 2 things happen. Number one is you need to tell us what your problem is. Otherwise, we don't belong there. Yeah, we don't belong there. If you're a midstream player, upstream, you're in the downstream space, data center, like I said, we've already met with some even manufacturing clients in the industrial space. We want to work backwards from your problem. Otherwise, why the hell are we there? That's number one. We are not interested in selling you products just to sell you for the sake of products and then stamp transformation. That's not the goal. It is to do that and give you a strategy, and you have that. And then
in an education.
And
typically that starts with an assessment.
It does. It starts with
we can't come in there in a meeting and sell you a product. It takes a long time to kind of understand, depending on your organization, obviously, and your process, your plans, whatever you're trying to transform. But it can take some time.
It does.
To look under the hood, do some interviews, talk to dozens of folks in some cases.
Yeah.
Just doing that, I see that'll be probably a big piece of our operation in 26. And of course, we're going to need to scale, because we're going to have a good reputation.
Yeah.
And people are going to call us.
Excited.
And so, guys, if you love the show, man, holler at us and let's get connected. So
the other thing that we're doing, don't forget, is also in the CRM space. Mm-hmm. So we do have, Daniel Nieto's on staff with us. I mean,
he's on the booth today.
Yeah, he's on the booth.
He's doing pretty good, I can tell.
So you have the chance to use a resource for the community. We'll talk more about that in 26.
There is, we can front this out. We've been recording some podcasts with Daniel.
Yeah.
Wow. We got like 5 or 6 done. We're going to do a few more. And then we're going to start releasing the Control Room Management mini series with SME Daniel Nieto. And, we're going to break the rule down like into small parts.
Yep.
And if you're struggling with one small part, or maybe you're struggling with all of it, or maybe you just want to understand more, tune into that, and that'll be dropping here. First ones, I don't know, we've got 5 or 6 already. We'll be dropping those here in a few weeks probably.
Yeah.
So
we'll point you to a community. We're going to point you to a place where you can go look at those videos, grab resources just like we would. We want to give back to the community. We don't believe in a big 6-figure bill for consulting. We believe that we can push that to the community and the community will respond.
Yeah. We're not greedy, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot happening, I think, in 26, Jeff. Not just transformation-wise, but control room management-wise. That's what we do. If you go look at us in our offering, we really target those groups that we talk about, that we touch. We're interested in helping you and not offering you just a single product, if you will. We're not stuck in that. We really care, and we want to see 26 just be a great year. Jeff, I don't know when we're going to close this thing, but I will tell you that I read something interesting recently where Jeff Bezos, whether you like him or don't like him, I don't know. But I will say that he said something back in, I think it was 2018. And he referenced leadership in the Amazon organization at the time as being, you're either a mercenary or you're a missionary. And I believe that in 2026 and beyond, for me, it's about being a missionary. It's about advocating for something and not just trying to pirate or find a way to be a mercenary to your organization. It is to be a missionary to give you what you need and to help you in transformation or control room management or in whatever we're doing for the client. So I just wanted to put that out there that, that's what I'm excited about.
All right.
So,
well, I think that's about it, guys. I really appreciate, Mike, you giving us your expert opinion on what's going to happen in 2026. Every now and then I see some of these guys on LinkedIn, some of the journalists and stuff that, especially on the oil side, they make predictions on oil. And, oil's looking low right now. Do you have a prediction for oil price to exit the Q4?
No, I don't. I think I'm going to put that on you, man. Give me your number. I know you've got a number somewhere in your head to exit Q4.
Well, it's tough. Venezuela just went down a couple days ago. So that could have a major impact on pricing going forward. But it's a tough time for production operators. So we may or may not be knocking on your door. You never know. The services we offer and historically have given to our old employers and past employers over the last decade a lot of people show up when oil is $50.
They do.
Because they know that we can save them money. It might require an investment, so that might be the thing that holds it back. But I don't know. I think we'd be doing good to exit the year at like $65.
Yeah, I think.
I'm hoping for 90, but we'll see.
Yeah. One off prediction, I think, for 26, and I don't want to, I don't think it's too worrisome, but I would say, I think it's a year for some major cyber attacks. Personally, I think that you're going to see.
For you personally?
Well, not for me. No, I just mean at industrial scale, man. Yeah. In nation states, I think more than ever, you're going to see those attacks come in 26. Not that they're not happening. It's just, I believe it's going to be more prevalent, and I think it's, as much as we talk about AI, I think you're going to see that as another item for a cyber attack. But I'm not trying to end this recording gloomy. Yeah. Just want you to know it's something we're thinking about. So
yeah, okay. So oil price is bad, cyber's bad. Like, what's the one good thing we're looking forward to exit the year, guys? So we really appreciate you joining us. Come see us at Intellect this year. Holler at Mike. Tell us what you want to do. Take us out, Mike.
Yep. Hey, again, thanks for being on this, Jeff. Good to have you on the show. We're going to continue 26. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Put your comments in. Join the conversation right here in the Energy Tech Podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Flores. Good show, Jeff.